What is the positive future that you would wish for humanity that you think is coming for us?
Like the most important problems to work on as a race are.
Now, I'm sure a lot of people have crazy ideas but they probably never act on it, right? Whereas you just like do these things and you have this attitude like you can just like do things in the world. So I'm curious, like where did that come from?
When I started Justin TV, I didn't know if it was technically possible to do a 24/7 live stream that was mobile, but I was like, I'm sure we can figure it out.
One big decision that you made in your journey was to give up alcohol.
I tried to moderate it. There's times I was like, okay, I'm only going to drink one beer a night, or only drinking beer. I'm going to drink one drink a night, or I'm going to only drink in days that end with the letter Y. The world's in a state of great change right now. We're like inflecting across all these different axes in ways that like a lot of think curves are going asymptotic. And I think people don't really realize that. Like most people think like society is stable.
Hello and welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we interview pioneers on human potential, on becoming superhuman, and how to build an epic future for humanity. Today's guest is one of Silicon Valley's most iconic builders and one of its most conscious ones. He co-founded Twitch, sold it to Amazon for nearly $1 billion, and then realized success alone doesn't make you free. And now he's helping founders both master startups and self-awareness. Please welcome to Becoming Superhuman, Justin Kahn.
What was little Justin like? Like where, what made you who you are today, and what are some of the pivotal moments that when you think back to, your childhood that contributed to you becoming the person that you're today?
Oh wow, that's a deep question.
We're going
deep
right
cuts.
in the deep end.
I love it. My mom used to make lists. She would like make us do chores off of lists.
Okay.
So when I was a kid, there'd be like a list of things every day that was like, take out the trash, do the laundry, do your homework or whatever, right? And nobody in my house, so I had two brothers, younger brothers, and nobody could like play video games or watch TV or whatever until everything on the list was done, which had a couple of consequences. One was that I compulsively do things now. Like I notice like if I walk by the dishes and they're clean, I can't like leave them for someone else to do. I like have to do them. It's almost like a physical compulsion. And also I like doing things off lists. So I run my entire life off of a to-do list with lots of recurring to-do items. So like every day there's like an item for gratitude journaling or taking my copious supplement regime. And I like check off things off the list throughout the day, like lots and lots of stuff.
So you still do this? You have like a list that you maintain actively?
Yes, like a daily list. Many of which the things are recurring every day. So like, and sometimes I'll put stuff on the list just because so I can cross it off. Like make a coffee, or like earlier I was like, and after I was working out, I was like, I want to make a protein shake, so I would make a protein shake on the list. Then I had one like 30 minutes later, and I checked it off and felt good about it.
Yeah,
and so
that's what I was curious. How does it feel when you check it off the list?
Feels great. And I look at this list like probably at least every 30 minutes, all day, for
where is this
to do.
I was going to ask what your preferred list app is, or is this
Todoist?
Okay.
Todoist is great because you can have items that every time you check it off, it recurs on a certain cadence. So for example, water my plants recurs every 3 weeks, and paying my rent in San Francisco recurs every month. But taking my supplements recurs every day, or I have certain like PT exercises I'm trying to do on my knee right now that recur twice a day. So
yeah,
it's just like super.
And so your mom used to make lists. So at what age did you kind of start doing this? I assume she
well, I didn't. She used to make us do these things off lists, which was like not really great at the time. Felt very onerous. But now I'm like compelled to do things off of lists, and it's pretty efficient actually. I mean, I do a lot of things every day, and so it's like a really good way to organize it. I don't really drop the ball on most things, so because they're always on a list, so I don't forget. And and the other thing
on
though,
the list?
Well, it changes. At the beginning of a day, there might be like 30 or 40 things. By the end of the day, there's usually like, 0 or 3 or 5 or something. But you can also reassign. The other thing I like about it is if something on the list is you can't do. If I can't move something forward, I can assign it to the next day and then it disappears off the list until the next day or some future date. So oftentimes, there's a lot of things that are non-actionable. Like you get an email from someone, or it's like, hey, I want to close this investment, but I'm waiting on information for someone else. So I'll move it to tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'll check, did I get this information? Maybe I'll send that person a reminder. Then I'll move it to the next day and then not think about it until that day.
Mm.
And how do you prune this list? Is it kind of like, do you do it as you go, or do you kind of sit down and do it at the end of the day or something?
What do you mean prune? Like if
As
something
as
is like,
as you organize it, or like, deleting things that you don't need to do anymore, or breaking things up into tasks or whatever.
yeah, if I don't need to do something anymore, then I will delete it immediately. If it's something where it's non-actionable, but it's important that I remember for the future, I assign it to a future date where I will be reminded to look at it again and see if I need to move the ball forward and it is actionable at that moment. Otherwise, I will once again kick it down the road. There's some things that I've like literally kicked down the road for like every month for like years because it's like, no, it's not actionable, but I still want to think about this in the future. So then I'll move it. And then if it's doable, then I'll do it immediately.
Yeah, I had no idea you were such a list master. This is it's great
Yeah,
to
I
learn.
started doing this maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
Before I would make lists like temporarily, but this is
Yeah.
like my master list, life hack.
Right.
Well, and then you said something interesting there, which is if you can do it immediately, you will.
Yeah, I do it immediately. I always do everything immediately. Like people are always off. They're often like, "How do you get back to so many people?" I very, very rarely leave someone unread and don't respond to them. And the key to that is I always respond immediately, or I make an action to respond if it's important, or if it's not important, like because it's like somebody who I don't know is asking for something outside the bounds of our social relationship. Then I'll be like, I'm not going to answer and just forget about it immediately.
Yeah. So this seems like one of the keys to being Justin Kahn is respond
But
immediately.
the other thing that was important about this behavior is it was a shared to-do list with my brothers. And so it kind of taught the importance of like doing things as a team and not worrying about who is responsible for what or what's fair, but rather just like, we got to get all these things done because I'm not going to get to play video games until everybody else's things are done too. So we need to divide and conquer. And if like they're lagging, then I should just go help them so that I can get what I want, which I think was a very effective teaching mechanism, especially for like starting a company, because, at the end of the day, if you start a company with a bunch of people, it doesn't really matter who's responsible for what. If like something critical doesn't get done, you're all failing together.
Is this something that you do with your kids, Justin? Or you plan to do?
Well, they don't really have, eventually. I would say they're like just at the point where they're like the oldest is able to like have responsibilities.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Well, and what I'm sort of curious about is when you were little, what was like the driving motivation for you? Because there can be fear-based motivations. If I don't get something done. I mean, in a sense, this sort of was. Oh, if we don't get all the lists done, then I can't go play video games. And then
So is
there's,
that fear-based or that's like desire, right? Because
yeah,
I want to
or
get this
that,
thing. So I'm like, this is like my way of it's like working to get what I want within the constraints of this, the economics of this particular system of
perhaps
governance.
both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good question.
Cool. All right. So next thing I want to ask you is, there are a few things that like you're so good at, you're probably like, top 0.001%, right? Like these superpowers that you have. And I
Like
kind
hair.
of wanted to, yeah, exactly. So I had a few of these things that I noted down, and I wanted to ask you, how much of this is nature versus nurture, as in you nurturing yourself as included. So the first thing that came to mind is agency, right? So you had this crazy idea to like strap a video camera to your head and walk around and stream it. And I'm sure a lot of people have crazy ideas but they probably never act on it, right? Whereas you just like do these things and you have this attitude like you can just like do things in the world. So I'm curious, like, where did that come from? And like, what's your inner dialogue like when you have these ideas and you wanna do these things?
I guess I've come to realize that I do have a very high sense of agency. I think that's intrinsic, and I don't think that was necessarily a learned behavior. I think my mom is someone who's like that. She has a very high sense of agency. She's been an entrepreneur across multiple disciplines. I'm more of like a small business entrepreneur, not tech entrepreneur, but she my grandfather, I didn't know him while he died when I was young, but he did a lot of different things too. He had like a bicycle shop and a rock quarry and a store and like all these different small businesses in Asia. And so I think there's like a genetic component or something. Or maybe there's a little bit of seeing my mom's example and how she had like a lot of agency in her life. But I've realized about myself, and I think it took me a long time to realize like other people don't necessarily share the same trait. Because I have never thought to myself like, oh, I can't do that. Like I always think like when I have an idea, I'm like, maybe I'll think about it and I'll be like, oh, that's kind of a dumb idea, or it's like not that interesting. But a lot of times when I'm into it, I'll like, oh, like when I started Justin TV, I didn't know if it was technically possible to do a 24/7 live stream that was mobile, but I was like, I'm sure we can figure it out. And I remember telling one of my co-founders once, I was like, I think I can do anything. Like if I was like wanted to start a company to send rockets into space or whatever, I couldn't necessarily do it myself, but I could build a team and find people to work with to like figure it out, and so, yeah, I just have this intrinsic feeling that like I can probably figure anything out with the right team.
What about probably one thing that stops a lot of people is like fear of failure or shame. Like what if I just like try and fuck up and people will like kind of laugh at me or whatever. Like, do you ever have those feelings?
I think because I'm like very optimistic, I'm like, it's probably going to work out for me. And while I do, or I did, the old Justin really cared what other people think. Now I'm like, mostly have released that. I was still an entrepreneur who cared a lot what people thought, but I thought probably that my action was going to result in like positive feelings towards me because I would be successful. So like, it's more like I don't really think about failing. It's not that I haven't failed. I failed a lot actually, but I just don't think about the failure cases very much, which I think is actually not, you don't always make the best decisions that way, right? But I do make higher risk decisions. I think I'm more willing to take the risky path because of it. I think like I'm a satisficer. Are you familiar with the decision-making framework of satisficers versus maximizers? So satisficers, like when you come to a decision, it's like when you think of a path or like a solution that's good enough, you just go with that and you never rethink your decision. Maximizers, will revisit decisions and always be trying to figure out the best, solution to a certain decision, and they'll often revisit previous decisions. So satisficing is like really good for like making lots of decisions, some, probably on average lower quality than you would as a maximizer, but you're like free of the pain of like mental anguish of like rethinking it over and over again.
Right.
And what I've noticed is like,
sorry,
go
what's
ahead.
the side benefit of decision speed? Right. I mean,
Yes,
I haven't heard this framework, but I really like this for CEOs, right? And anyone who has to make a lot of decisions in a day. If you're a maximizer, sometimes you're just too slow.
Well, I think they're different. They're good for different things. And so I don't want to say one is better than the other because I do think I make low quality decisions sometimes. I have my business partner, Robin, we work really well together because he's a maximizer and he really cares. He's like not capable or doesn't want to be in a position where he's making lots of decisions, but he wants to think deeply about fewer things. And I think on average, he makes better decisions than I do. So we're a good team because, then it's like, okay, I'll take the like mass number of low quality decisions that don't matter as much. And then maybe you'll think more on the like most important ones, or we'll like collaborate on those. And, we work well.
Yeah, it reminds me of like there's this book. I think it's called "The Courage to Be Disliked." That was kind of quite popular among founder friends for a while, and it seemed like you kind of naturally do that. I don't know if you have any thoughts or advice on like if someone wants to practice that more, right? Like what would you tell them to do more of?
Well, I don't think you can satisficing versus maximizing, I think, is like being an extrovert versus an introvert. I think you need to be true to your nature, right? So if you are a maximizer and you want to make more decisions, I would say there's probably like, because you're the way your brain works, a maximum number of decisions and the things you want to be thinking about and context switches that you want to even have in a day.
But then how do you avoid being paralyzed by like kind of all the things that could go wrong, for example, when you're making any decision?
Well, maybe you need to partner with someone who's going to suck you along into like doing some crazy things, you know? If you want to increase your risk threshold, I guess specifically, then, like, I mean, my partner is probably a really good example because he would often think a lot about like different companies. And I'm like, hey, let's just do it. And the answer is probably somewhere in the middle of like, if you think too much, you're paralyzed. But if you just start the first company, you think of, then it might not be the right one. So like maybe it's good to have a thought partner, I think it's like, I don't really believe in like changing your core personality. First of all, I don't think it's possible, but I also don't think it's very practical across like many of these intrinsic dimensions, right? Like if you're an introvert and you try to force yourself to be an extrovert, you'll never be happy, like, and vice versa. And if you're a satisficer and you're trying to force yourself to be a maximizer or vice versa, you're never going to be happy. You're never going to be like at your fullest potential. So I think that what's important is to like create a system in which you can work as your core personality that's effective in society.
Yeah, that's well.
What I will say on that though is, and I think this is true for both Dylan and I, is that particularly in the extroversion thing, that's flipped for both of us. Like Dylan, when you
I think
thought that you were an introvert, and now you probably describe yourself as an extrovert.
I thought I was an introvert, but I think I was always an extrovert because
he was a shy introvert.
Yeah.
A shy extrovert. Yeah,
shy extrovert. Yeah, it's similar to me. He was a shy extrovert. I was what I was, but and so by becoming more extroverted and be more comfortable with people, that's embracing your true nature. Versus if you're actually an introvert, forcing yourself to be in all these extroverted situations all the time, you're going to be more drained and more uncomfortable.
And I'm also a maximizer, Justin, and I've been trying to practice making more decisions faster. And I actually think of you sometimes, like what would Justin do? So it's helpful.
He actually has
a
flip and says that.
Cool. Okay, so the second superpower that you have, I wanted to ask you about is inspiring other people and drawing them to commit to your mission and vision. The original Justin TV team was just like such an incredible team of talent, and you've done this like many times, even Titanic's End, the Burning Man camp / Art-Car that you initiated. Such a high talent density. So what's the secret there? Why are people drawn to work with you on your ideas?
The hair.
It's the hair.
Kind of going, it's the hair.
Yeah,
the hair. But
we're gonna get into the hair routine after.
Yeah, that'll be like the bonus material if you want to get them on the Patreon. You want the hair tips. I think the answer, there's kind of like a historical answer of like where you came from, and then maybe like the practical, like what are the actions that I do that are effective. The historical thing is like I've always been someone I give up. I think we talked about this maybe like, in a side chat or something, one-on-one, but like I've always been, people think I'm someone who's like really good at a lot of things or like have a lot of ability to do things. And that's true in the world generally, but my own individual effectiveness at doing things is pretty low. And my own like rate of like learning or expertise of like specific subject matter or domain expertise is actually like pretty low. I like get demotivated and don't like learn things that well myself or like don't want to. So for example, like, I don't know, AI, building an AI app, let's say I'm like, I could probably look at all the like how LLMs really work and like learn about like, I don't know, RAG or something like that. And like, if I want to build an AI app, but I'm just like, no, I like to sit there and I'll probably get discouraged and bored or whatever. And because that's been true my whole life, I've really worked through people. Like I've always had high agency, but I've been like, hey, I need to recruit some people who are smarter than me and better than me and like motivate them to be effective at doing something. And so I never start a company without other people or project without other people. And I'm like, it's really for me about getting the right people together and inspiring them to move in a common cause, right?
Now, how do you do that? Like what quality about you is attracts these people?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Why have you done a lot of free labor on my Burning Man camp? Like, it's
yeah. Well, there's well, there's a okay. I if I am to describe why, like, there's a certain audacity to your ideas and how you approach them, and you just like make things look far more possible than they actually are sometimes even. And then you have so much confidence that it's actually going to work out. And I think like people kind of want to people want to do shit, people want to do big shit, and they're drawn to that like confidence and certainty
Yeah.
that yeah.
Um, I think, people want to be part of something, right? Like it's human nature to want to be part of something and to want to have a mission. And so, the job of a leader is to paint a vision of a world that people want to be part of and for them to be able to see their place in it. And so it's like, how do you create a vision for whatever it is, right? It could be an art project, it could be a company, it can be a, you know, sailing expedition where you're going to Antarctica. It's like, why you're painting a vision of like, why do you want to do this? Why it's exciting? What's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or like the friends you're going to make along the way? And then you are saying, here's what your place is in it, right? Like, if we're going to build the biggest art car at Burning Man, or we're going to build this giant live video system, that's Twitch or something, like, it's going to be really awesome because we're going to build this really amazing company, and we need you because you're the person who can do X, Y, or Z thing. You're the, and don't you want to be part of that? So like really creating that, painting that, telling that story. And then, people want a lot of things. They want to feel valued, they want to feel, like they're a core contributor or something. So making sure that you can see where their place is in it and that you can explain that to them. They want to know that it's, like you said, they want to know it's possible. So articulating why, you have a plan and it's possible to execute it. I'm a very good frameworks thinker. So I'm pretty good at explaining how something fits into like a story of like what a framework of like how we're going to get this done or whatever. So I have both like a high level vision, but also like I can practically explain how like we might effectively execute something. And the combination of those two things is like pretty compelling to people. And then people want autonomy and they want to be trusted, they want, and so, one thing I'm really good at is to trust people and say, hey, like you can do your best work and I'm going to help you. Like, you have this part of it and we need you, you're needed, and you are able to make these sets of decisions to like, own this part of this important thing. And I think people really appreciate that. And so, those kind of the building blocks of leadership and getting people inspired to do something.
How do
I
you
really like that phrase of like, you are needed to do X.
yeah.
And so you're just very clear about why you want them on the ship.
Yeah.
The difference, Justin, I've seen with people like you to, people who just want to do audacious things and bring people together, like, Elon, Steve Jobs, whatever, like, is that they, at least looking from outside, they don't seem to even question their crazy fucking vision, right? To go to Mars or wherever it is, right? It's just like, sounds insane, but this guy like just believes in it so much, like I kind of want to go work on it, right? But a lot of people, I'd imagine, including myself, have a great idea, but then like you kind of have self-doubt. Like, what if I just lead people the wrong way and people end up wasting time or losing jobs or whatever, right? So do you worry about that kind of stuff?
No, because I think it's kind of what you said, which is like, or what we were talking about in the beginning, which is I don't worry about it because I'm an optimist and I don't really think it's not going to work out. Like life is generally, I've made a lot of, I had like mistakes and started companies that didn't work out, but I didn't think they weren't going to work out at the time. I thought they were going to work out. And I think I generally am, it's like I've got a vibe that's like, I think it's going to work out for me. And on
So
average, it has worked out for me.
short of splicing your genes, is there anything else people can do to be more like?
I mean, yeah, I don't, it's hard to know because I do think this is not a learned behavior. Like certain behaviors, like, comfort in front of people or extra, being, my social skills or whatever. Those are like, I would say learned behaviors. I didn't like pop out of the womb, like, being as confident and, good at socially or great at public speaking as I am now. All those things were learned behaviors. But in terms of thinking that things are going to work out, that is a blessing for me and privilege that I have always
Yeah,
felt that way. Yeah.
that's incredible. Cool.
And
Yeah.
I'm just curious where that belief came from. Like, did mom and dad have that belief in themselves, or in you, or both, or neither?
Yeah, well, I think my mom, like I was saying, she felt the same way, and I think my grandfather also on my mom's side was like, I think there was a genetic component of it. So I do think I'm like, I just think it's probably going to work out. Like when I think of an idea, I'm like, if I think it through and I'm like into it, I'm like, oh, this is going to work. People are going to like this. It's going to be a product that people like. It's going to be cool, whatever it is, you know.
And while we're back on the topic of your mom, I'm sort of curious, is there anything that you did sort of consciously learn or pick up from her in her experience of entrepreneurship on a small scale that has really scaled well for you? You've applied to your business?
Appreciation of other people, like recognition and appreciation of other people. I will always, whenever I walk by anyone doing anything, I'm like, thank you for doing that. You know, for me, like at a company, at our Burning Man camp, whatever it is, like I'm always recognizing people feel like they get seen by me because I'm always seeing what people are doing, and I'm really grateful for it. And that's what people want, is appreciation. They want to feel valued. They want to feel like they're important. They're part of something. And that was something my mom always did. And I, watched that, and, subconsciously, I think, but now I recognize it, like picked up that behavior.
Yeah.
It's a really, really, really good tip. Like something
Yeah.
that's very actionable.
Yeah. Justin, thank you for picking up that behavior.
You're welcome.
Really,
Thanks
I
for
really
recognizing it.
I
Right.
appreciate how you really see me.
That actually leads to the next superpower that I think you have, that I want to ask you about, is community building, and I'm sure this has a lot to do with that. A lot of successful people who are wealthy, they almost get more lonely as they become more successful and wealthy, which is unfortunate. Whereas you're the opposite. You have so many people that deeply love you for who you are and all the things that you've contributed to them and community, the community building that you've done. So what makes you so good at that?
I think I like having people around. That was another thing for my mom. She was very sociable and extroverted, and whenever we'd have friends around, she'd always invite them to stay for dinner, and like she was always having people at our house, like people. She would kind of like take in people from our community, and they would like stay at our. We had a big house. She would stay at our house. Some of people at times, like I remember one cousin of mine was like fighting with his parents. He stayed with us for like months. Like when he was more than 10 years older than I was. So it was like much older, but like, that was like, I just saw that example. And so I'm always like welcoming the people around into whatever I'm doing. And I also think it fits into like, kind of like do things through people, and so one of my friends once, pointed out, he was like, you're the master delegator, you're always like handing off work. Another person was like, you're like the Tom Sawyer Silicon Valley. Like, people are like, you're always like handing off work to people. And I'm like, it's true. It's like, I'm really good at delegating, finding people to do things and fit the thing, whatever project I want to do. I'm like always pulling people along and like handing them a paintbrush of like, all right, let's do this together. You do this. And then people want to do it. They want to participate in something, like I said. And I feel like that's, I need people around to like do all the things I want to manifest in the world. And so that's why maybe part of it is like why I'm always like investing in building relationships. And I just love people, and I'm very curious about people, and love like, I love being around people. So to me, those are the things that feed it,
Yeah, no, you are very curious about people. This is another thing that I've personally noticed, Justin. I don't know. I get bored talking to most people. Like the certain subset of people that I love talking to, right? But like, but I've seen you just like have just like long conversations with random people, and it's cool. I think I think you're just like interested in everyone.
Yeah, there's like a Buddhist quote, right, or something that's like, walk down the road, three people walked around down the road, and two of them are my teachers, or something like that. Like, or I don't know, I'm butchering it, but it's basically like if you walk down the road with two other people, then you can learn something from two people,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good Dalai Lama story about that. He was supposed to give some big talk, and everyone's waiting in the theater for him. And then his sort of handlers found him in his in his room talking with the maid, and he was just
I
so
think I've heard that one.
present, yeah, with her that he missed the talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a sort of a good segue, Justin. When you and I last caught up, we were in the desert, and you were sharing a little bit about a bit of a transformation in your focus, and I was wondering if we could unpack that a little bit, where and forgive me if I'm mischaracterizing it, but sort of a shift from an egocentric view around building to really focusing on technology that benefits humanity, and then coaching the founders and really helping them to thrive. And I was curious to share if you would share about how that transformation came about for you.
Yeah, so I think that's been something that's been happening over the last 7 years for me. When I started in Silicon Valley, I needed affirmation of the outside world. That was my reason for starting a company. I was like, I want to be successful because then I'll get the love that I always needed, from when I was younger. And, became successful. Thank you, God. And I had great success, but that, you can never fill the holes of your childhood with like modern achievement, contemporary achievement. And so like um, I was like, what now? This is not like, I don't feel any better, even though I've become more successful than I ever thought. And so, um, did a lot of work on myself. I think I've talked to you guys at length
Yeah.
about it, but,
Well,
drank
actually, let me
ayahuasca
let
and
me let
yeah.
me interrupt, and we're going to come back to that. But I wanted to slow this down because I don't think everybody hears this all the time. So you really you were focused on this achievement to be able to get the love that you really want. Do you find, is that pervasive in Silicon Valley? Most founders are like this. Most leaders are like this, or was that a unique to you sort of experience? Now that you've talked with so many
I think
founders and
it's pretty
supporters.
common. I don't know. It's like
Yeah,
everybody, but I think it's pretty
right.
common. I think a lot of
Super.
people, and it's not about founding companies. It's everyone
Yeah,
who's high achieving. I think a lot of high
yeah,
achieving people are high achieving. There's like different motivations, right? But one
yeah.
common motivation is they're trying to fill a hole that they didn't get that wasn't filled when they were younger,
Right,
and
right.
you're always living out. I think most people are living out patterns from when they were kids, whether they're healthy ones or unhealthy ones. And so, yeah, for me, my pattern was like when I was young, I didn't feel like I got the approval that I needed from my parents and my peers. And so as an adult, I was making decisions to try to get that approval. I want to,
Right.
some of those were around like, I want to be a famous founder. I want to be successful. I want to be rich. I
Mhm.
want to have people like me on social media,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And then you went and accomplished those things. And so that sort of brings us up to where you were in the story of you achieved all of that. And then did you feel that love that you were looking for at that time?
Well, it's very fleeting, right?
Yeah.
In that it's, I felt good for like a month, but then you're like, oh, now what? I want to do more. I want more. The human hedonic adaptation is real, and like the human thirst is
Yeah.
unquenchable. And so I was like, I wanted to start a bigger company and have more. And, then I was like, the rational part of me was like, oh, that's crazy because like, you did a lot. So like, something's fucked up about your motivation system. And so,
Right. Right. So you were
yeah.
able to recognize that, at least have the self-awareness and self-reflection to go, holy shit, I'm on the hedonic treadmill. This road is not going where I want it to go. It's not going to lead to lasting sense of love.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would have been able to articulate it that eloquently, but I was definitely like, this is like seems messed up. This is yeah. And so I ended up doing a lot of self-work. I drank ayahuasca and did other things like a lot of meditation and learned about myself and realized I'd made every decision I'd made as an adult because to try to fill this hole from when I was a kid, and then slowly shifted to understanding like if I just show up, I don't have to show up that way in the world if I don't want to anymore. I can like do things differently. And so really start focusing on, instead of like me needing to feed my own ego, maybe I'll be happier if I'm of service more to people around me, my community, my family, and really kind of trying to do things from a place of, I don't want to make it sound too like grand, but like, selfless service is the word people use. But like, really, it's more about like doing things for other people where I'm not like trying to get something, like, or I'm not thinking, because before I think in Silicon Valley, I'd be like, oh yeah, I want to help these founders or whatever. But my motivation was like, maybe I'll invest, or maybe I'll, down the road, I'll be like known as, reputationally as helpful. And so then I'll get some business opportunity or whatever. Whereas like now I'm more like, oh, I want to like see these things manifested in the world and just like be helpful. And then I'm kind of trust that the universe is going to take care of me, you know?
Beautiful. One question I have about that though is this view, this philosophy, sort of a privilege of being successful, right? Or deep like if you saw a founder that was motivated and they're early in their journey and they're motivated by the selfless service, is that a positive signal? Is that a negative signal in terms of the outcome of the company?
But I don't think I've ever seen one who's been like early in the journey and motivated by it. Well, I mean, maybe actually that's probably a little unfair. I think people have different motivations. I think there's some founders, for example, who are motivated to just like make the most, but they're generally motivated by mission or curiosity in the world, which is, I think, is a lot healthier. So I do think those people exist. Yeah. But, I always respect people who like came to the realization that the extrinsic world is never going to fulfill them inside before they had the experience of it not working. Right. Cause like, it's easy to know that, people are like, oh, it's easy for you to say you're already rich. So, and to some extent that's true. I like, it's easy. Other people haven't had the knowledge of being like, oh, I became successful and it didn't make me any happier in a lasting way. So for those people, I'm like, hey, go, that's great. Go figure it out. Everyone's journey is, you got to go on your own journey. And so for a lot of people, they're going to have to go see, climb the first mountain, and then they'll be like, oh shit, there's a second mountain.
Right. Yeah. So you're investing them, even though that they're doing the first mountain, which is sort of doing it for ego, and maybe there's a positive intention mixed in there, and you're just going to support them sort of on the ride and point to them about some of these clues, or do you try to really work with them to get a concept
I
like
mean, like
this early
people like coach. I mean, I
that
feel
you
like
coach? Yeah.
most people, I don't coach very many people, first of all. But a lot of them are in that transitionary phase of like, oh, my company is successful. I have become successful, and I am not happy. How do I make this sustainable or whatever? And usually people, it's a mix of missionary and mercenary, right? Like no one's black and white. So like a lot of times those people have like, a mission component, and they also have a mercenary component, and it's maybe like helping them embrace more of the mission and release more of the mercenary.
Yeah. It is there an ideal mix of those two that you find? Like if it goes all missionary, does it not work out?
I don't think that's necessarily the case. No, I think there's like certain people who are, like aren't doing things for their ego. They're doing things because they want to breathe life into something in the world, and they're incredibly curious about it. I'm an investor in this company, Science, a BCI company, which I think is going to be the most important company in the world. And the founder, Max Hodak, is the smartest person I've ever met in Silicon Valley. And he's motivated to build BCI out of his own scientific curiosity and belief that it will be critically important for humanity. And I believe that. And he is, yeah, just like a very curious. I think his core motivation is curiosity. It's not like, oh, I want to build this to be the super important. I mean, I think he is and will be incredibly important because of the inventions and discoveries they're making, but I don't think that's his core purpose.
Yeah. I actually my own personal beliefs around this is that curiosity is going to be one of the number one necessary traits as we go through this crazy revolution and what it means to be human over the next couple decades with AI and all this stuff is just your ability to be able to be in wonder about what could be. I think will help us have resilience in this. So one question I have before we move on here is just you've tried a lot of shit to rewire how you work and how you function, and you mentioned ayahuasca. What do you think is like the one thing, or if you could wish that others would do this, that would help them in making this transition that you've gone through?
I think it's hard. I mean, like, there's not one medicine for all of humanity, right? Everybody needs a different prescription. I can only speak from my own experience, which is like ayahuasca really helped me learn a lot of things about myself. But I did a lot of other work. That's kind of like a headline thing. After I realized that, I did like a lot of meditation and a lot of gratitude journaling, and I talked a lot about those types of things. So I think, I believe in like almost all the different modalities, healing modalities. And I think there's a lot to learn from the different ones. And usually people who are seeking their own self-improvement and healing, should try different things and see what works for them.
Do you have a particular style of meditation that worked well for you?
This general mindfulness of like what helped me was thinking. I remember the first time I ever did any meditative practice. I was going to therapy because I was working on the startup that was failing, and I was very demotivated. I was kind of paralyzed by guilt because I hadn't thought it was going to fail, but it ended up being in the state of failing to my surprise. And I was like, I felt guilty every day, and I was like, man, I don't want to get out of bed. So how do I need to go back to work. So what can I do to like feel motivated? And so I was talking to this therapist, and she was like, what does guilt feel like? She asked me like in the therapy session, she was like, what does being guilty feel like? And I was like, the fuck are you talking about? It feels like being guilty. Like, what do you mean? What does it feel like? It's a stupid question. And she was like, no, what's the feeling of being guilty? Like, where does it feel? How does it feel in your body? And I was kind of like, okay. And then I was sitting there thinking about it, and I was like, oh, it feels like kind of like a tightness in my chest, like a clenching of my stomach, and a voice in my head that's like, you fucked up. And, there's like different types of tension, like physiological tension in the body. She was like, hey, you should just sit there and feel it and feel what that's like. So I was doing that, and I was like kind of thinking this is dumb, and I was feeling it. And then I was kind of present with the feeling of anxiety, this feelings of guilt and anxiety, and I felt what it felt like in the body, in my chest and my stomach. And then in like 10 seconds, it went away. I was like, oh, that's weird. And so, that was kind of the first time I ever did any sort of mindfulness exercise. And so often I just stop myself. I've done other types of mindfulness meditations and over the years. But the thing that's really helped me is like just having meditative moments where I like sit and I'm like, oh, what is the experience of whatever I'm experiencing at the moment? So if I'm feeling angry, I'm like, oh, what's the experience of being angry? What's the experience that I'm having right now? Or I'm just like at the gym or walking in the woods or, listening to music or whatever. I'm like, oh, whenever I remember, I'm like, what is the experience that I'm having right now? And then just sit in that experience. And, the human body is designed to process emotions. It's not designed to like hold them. And so, generally when you let yourself fully experience your emotions, you process them and then move on, which is way better than the alternative.
Is this something that you still do, Justin, when you feel, I don't know, stressed or whatever, like negative emotions? Do you sit down and like kind of feel them through?
Yeah, I try to if I remember. Sometimes you're swept away and you're like really like you're holding the brick and you're like, I'm gonna throw this through the window, and then you're just like, I can't help myself. But for the most part, I try to be like, I'm holding the brick and I'm like, oh, what's the experience I'm feeling right now? And I'm like, oh, I'm feeling tightness in my chest and like there's my jaws clenching and I really want to fucking throw this brick through this guy's window. But
Yeah.
then you just like process it and
Yeah.
window
And have you,
saved.
as over time, have you gotten quicker at processing these emotions? I assume like when you have gotten,
Yeah, I
more,
think
more
so.
practice.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah. The other thing ask myself sometimes if I'm feeling some difficult emotion, I'm like, it's there to serve me. Isn't it funny that, your emotions are evolved to serve you, right? Like anger is a sign. I think of emotions as like almost like it's like AI. Like you input all this data and then they spit out an answer and you don't really know why, right? It's not rational necessarily. It's like a trained behavior or whatever. And so Like you've taken all your like data, and then your rational mind might say, "Oh, you have to do X, Y, or Z things," but your emotional body is like, "I'm angry, or I'm sad, or have anxiety, or I fear," and that's like a also valid data too, right? Because those are signals that something needs to change, right? When you feel anger, it's saying something's wrong and it needs to change right now. When you feel sadness, it's like something got fucked up in the past, right? When you feel anxiety, it's like I think something might get fucked up in the future. And so those are all signals, and you should ignore them at your peril, right? And so often when I'm feeling some sort of difficult emotion, I'm like, oh, isn't it funny that this whole evolution evolved, like all these, animals evolved eventually to have emotions, and then all the way down to me. And it's like the billions of years of evolution to create this moment where I'm getting this signal.
Yeah, well, I so appreciate you bringing this up because this is literally one of the first techniques that I use when I'm coaching founders, right? Because what I began to notice in my own journey was I'm literally in some cases spending years doing behaviors and activities to not feel certain emotions, right? You can use work, distraction, alcohol, sex, all kinds of stuff to try to not feel these things, and then eventually you sort of get overwhelmed. And I had such a similar moment that you described with someone going, "Well, where do you feel the anger?" And I'm like, "I don't fucking know. Somewhere between my top of my head and bottom of my toes." And then, but really starting to be with it and then understand that emotion is actually just a somatic experience, and that once you can develop the stress tolerance to be with it, because it's short, but it's also not enjoyable to be with terror, for example, right? And once you can be with that and then it can pass, it's so much faster than the alternative. So I appreciate bringing that up.
And when it comes to psychedelics, Justin, I mean, you've experimented
Never
with a
heard of
bunch of
them.
them. And you've learned a lot from a lot of them. It seemed like what what about psychedelics is it that leads to these learnings? Is it that, how would you describe it? Is it that people just like kind of replay their experiences in that state and kind of come to new conclusions, or is it just like kind of meeting God kind of thing where you just like don't care about your previous frame of mind anymore? How do you think the learnings manifest?
I don't know. I mean, I guess really I can only speak to my own experience with, you know, particularly with ayahuasca, which I think was the one that was very impactful for me. Like I learned these things about myself that were in my subconscious that I never could articulate or weren't like consciously aware. I wasn't really consciously aware of. And so I think that really helped me um, become more, well, like understand myself better. Like I think knowing yourself, like I am somebody who like really knows myself really well, like my strengths and my weaknesses. I think everyone's strengths are also their weaknesses, right? The parts of their personality that are most pronounced are like the things that are, usually they can harness to be powerful for them, and they're also like blind spots. I think I know myself super well. I think I owe a lot of that to my experience with ayahuasca, and so um, I don't know. I think it affects other people. Other people have different kinds of trauma, and they like things can help them in different ways that I don't know. I don't feel like I'm an expert that can really speak to anything except my own experience.
And so I mean, one maybe at least looking from externally, one big decision that you made in your journey was to give up alcohol, right? And so I'm curious, like, um, what helped you? I mean, a lot of people make these decisions, right? Like I'm smoking and I want to give up smoking, and it's like you kind of back at it like next day or whatever, right? Or like losing weight or whatever, right? Like you just see people trying and kind of failing repeatedly. But you've never, I don't think you have had a drop of alcohol since you kind of just quit. How why? Like what helps you stick to the decisions that you make like this, or the learnings that you walk away with in your personal growth journeys, like you really applied them to yourself. So why do you think that works so well for you?
Well, when I tried to quit drinking, or not quit, but I tried to moderate. I'm like kind of an all or nothing person, as you know, and so I was trying to moderate. I used to drink a lot. I love drinking. I probably would again if I started again. And I liked it because for me, drinking was, I had been a shy extrovert, and for me, drinking kind of like it was like going from Clark Kent to Superman. I was like some shy nerd, and then when I'd be drinking, I was like the life of a party and very sociable. And so it was kind of an ingrained habit from when I was in high school and college, and then like I just couldn't imagine a world without drinking. And but eventually I'd like tried it every kind of way, and it was definitely not good for me. And I'd have one drink, which would turn into like more, and then it's like I was just a very toxic person while drinking. So I ended up deciding I tried to moderate at various times. I was like, okay, I'm only going to drink one beer a night, or only drinking beer. I'm going to drink one drink a night, or I'm going to only drink in days that end with the letter Y. And, it never worked like that, where I would like be able to stick to any plan. And so eventually I was like, I just got to quit entirely. But then once I made the decision, I'm like, never going to drink again, it became easier because I just tweeted it. I think I told everybody I knew I'm like quitting drinking forever. And then, I was like, I want the social pressure of not ever having, I'm like, for me, it's like once I say something publicly, then that's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
That's interesting. The social pressure, and this is, I think, gets to how well you know yourself. Is that you knew that was the leverage point that would work for you, and that may not work for
Yeah.
everyone, right?
Yeah. I think actually you're supposed to not. I read somewhere you're supposed to not announce it because it's like, then you're like, maybe
Then you get
that's
the
too much
reward in
pressure or something.
advance. Yeah, I think that the science on it was that you get the reward in advance. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, good job. Oh, you're going to the gym. Oh, you quit drinking or whatever it is," and then you're like, "Yeah, all right, I feel good," and then you can go do it again, and then you can announce later that you're quitting again.
Yeah. I mean, although maybe you don't get the praise at that point as
Yeah,
much. They're
maybe
like,
maybe
oh,
not as much.
it's like your second wedding. Like, how many gifts do you get for your second wedding?
I'm interested to get into a little bit your views around human potential and entrepreneurship. Like, where are the frontiers that you're excited about? Because it seems like now more than ever, there's a lot of tech that's coming forward that can really improve our experiences as humans. And it sounds like this is an area that you're passionate about investing in. So you mentioned the BCI company, but more generally, what are the trends that you're excited about?
So I think I have this ill-formed hypothesis, or like currently forming hypothesis, that like the world, maybe I've told it to you, Dylan, the world's in a state of great change right now. We're like inflecting across all these different axes in ways that like a lot of think curves are going asymptotic. And I think people don't really realize that. Like most people think like society is stable. If you look at the last, I don't know, if you were born in America, right, which I was in the 80s, and then you look at your arc of your life, like today we have like more phones and more like, lithium ion powered things, and we, have better, like there's more computing and things on the internet, and there's mobile, but like your general life feels like maybe it hasn't changed that much, like quality of life or whatever. Um, and since you were a kid, people still are kind of doing the same things. And so probably feels like society is like very stable in a way. But actually think that's not the case. Like we're like a lot of curves are going like super asymptotic even in our lifetime. And there's likely to, I think that's going to continue. And so like if you look at, human population, there's like, that looks like a asymptote, right? There was like, I think 100 years ago, there were like 2 billion people or something. Now there's like 8 billion. Like, there's like man-made, like all these man-made materials or curves are like, there's more like man-made material than biomass now in the world, or like, energy consumption is like going, is geometrically increasing, or like, um, data centers, or, human data storage or whatever. And so we're like, things are changing really rapidly. And like one of the ones that I'm really obsessed with is human fertility. I've probably talked to you guys about this, but like the human fertility rate in almost every country around the world is plummeting. It's actually
Mm-hmm.
like below replacement rate in the US, along with like many other countries, like all of Latin America and most of Asia, and outside of Central Asia, and all of Europe. And it's really bad, you
Yeah.
know.
Well,
It's really
let's
bad for our,
unpack
yeah.
why it's really bad, because I think there's been various times over the last few decades where people have advocated for population control, and you go, well, we're putting so much pressure on the earth and our environment, so why isn't that a positive?
Well, it's not a positive because for a couple of reasons. Number one, like society needs there to be like a demographic pyramid to support like old retired people in a like stable state. And so if your like population is declining, which we're not at yet in America, but some countries like Japan are actively declining. They have like a sub one TFR, which is that means that Japan's going to lose like 95% of its population in the next 100 years. Someone has to take care of all, like build society or run society and like do all the jobs to support people who are retirement age. And if you have demographic inversion, no one's going to be around to do that. Some people in Silicon Valley are like, hey, that's all going to be done by AI and robots in the
That's
future.
what I
But
was exactly
are we
where I was
betting
going.
society? Are you willing to bet society on it? I don't know. I don't know that that's like one, bet I would want to take. Maybe that's the case. Also, like, I think it's bad for moral reasons. Like, I like they're human beings. I'm a humanist, and I think there should be more people. Um, and I think I guess I have a positive. I think people have this Malthusian view on like the world can only support so many people. Although we've always broken through those barriers, from like a food and housing perspective and energy consumption perspective. And I think it's an illusion that we can ever go back to any sort of like reduced population world. Like I think we need, kind of like the only way out is through. Like we need continued scientific progress and human progress in order to get to, like the next phase of human evolution. And so either we're like a bootloader for an AI civilization. Humanity is going to look like this asymptotic curve that just declines. It's like goes up to 8 billion or 10 billion or whatever, and then goes down and plummets because we have created the conditions of our own environmental destruction because we are not reproducing anymore. And there's a bunch of factors that could probably go into why people don't have kids anymore. Or we're going to like solve the problem and work on technologies that improve the human condition and kind of take us to that future state. Like people call it singularity or whatever, but I think it's like um, an advanced state of human technology where there's like people are I don't know what it's going to look like actually, but I think it's going to involve people spreading through the stars and um, being able to communicate with computers and with each other in ways that probably feel like science fiction right now, and will and people living much longer, and us like controlling the means of our own reproduction. And so I think like people should be working on those technology. Like those are the core technologies that I think will make a difference. And like the time is now. Either we're going to like plummet as a species, or we're going to, um, advance the state of our own technology and mastery.
Well, I think the thing that I would be curious to ask is if you were to put a stake in the sand for 10 years from now, what is the positive future that you would wish for humanity that you think is coming for us?
Well, just to finish my thought from the other question, it's like the things that I think are important are like you should be working on, like the most important problems to work on as a race are energy, um, kind of for the obvious reason. I think technology, especially around AI, is going to require more energy over time. I think AI and robotics is kind of like one that already has sufficient attention. Longevity, I think human longevity is going to be really important, especially with declining population. I think uh, reproductive technology, assistant technology, are super important. And I think space travel is important to like fulfill our manifest destiny of spreading through the stars. Um, and I think those are like really important things to work on now because we are in this state of great change where the future is uncertain. And those are the technologies that are going to help us um, navigate the future, which, to answer your question, it looks like, um, human beings are able to, I think they'll eventually connect with and communicate with AI and each other directly in a very high bandwidth way through the brain, through brain computer interfaces. Um, and I think we'll hopefully like control the means of our own lifespan and health span, and I think that and I hope that,
Well, that would
um,
that would fix population decline, right? I mean, if we stop dying.
yeah, I hope so. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing that I hope, we don't like know all the answers yet, but I think a lot of people are working on, um, both like lifespan and health span improving technologies. And so I think, I have a lot of hope for the next decades.
Justin, what do you think the future of entrepreneurship looks like? Because a lot of people think right now is like one of the best times to build. Do you agree with that?
There's always like good companies to build in every era. It just like depends on which ones, right? You always want to build at the frontier of what's possible, I think. I don't know. That's my own bias because I'm a technology entrepreneur, and so I think that, how do you think it's the best time, or what do you think that it's the best time now?
I think people argue that like right now there are because of AI especially, and then a lot of scientific breakthroughs, there are a lot of ideas that you can just like you can literally take AI and apply to any vertical, and that's like that could be a business type thing, right? So
Yeah, I think there's also like incumbents are smarter about that and have more distribution. So, I think a lot of these like AI for X vertical, it's like I'm not sure a startup's going to win over an incumbent that already has distribution. I think it's a little bit like in the weeds though, versus like the mobile era. I think incumbents were like much less technology adept. So you could like probably take almost any idea and put it on mobile and that was a business, but that was probably like less likely to be competed with by an incumbent. But I don't know, I think now's a fine time for entrepreneurship.
yeah, and maybe the other reason is, especially from like a personal empowerment point of view, right now is probably the best time to learn anything, right? Like you could just like use ChatGPT to learn pretty much anything, and even if you don't have prior knowledge on a kind of vertical, you can just like dive in and figure things out, and you've probably never been as empowered before. So
Yeah, I
that's
think that's
cool.
true. But there was also like a lot more competitors because of that, because more
Yes,
people
yeah,
are out there like,
right,
doing stuff. But it's probably
right.
good overall for like human technological progress.
Yeah, I have one question as we come to a close here, Justin, which is, just given the amount of inner work you've done, the meditation work and things like that, people come to sort of different views or hypotheses on what is consciousness, like what is this human experience that we're having, and I'm curious if you have a definition for that feels true for you.
Well, the way that the human brain works is that you bind your conscious experience is like a kind of like a binding across all these different neurons that are firing in the brain at once, right? So you have your neurons, represent different things, everything from like conceptual ideas of like, oh, I see this dog, and the neuron for like four-legged animals fires, or dog, or brown and white because it's white, and you have like a bunch of neurons firing every moment that represent all the different moment experiences of consciousness, and they're all bound together in a single moment. And I don't really know what that moment is, except I'm experiencing it, like the feeling of it. I guess it's kind of ineffable. Um, but I think that's what consciousness is. And I do think that we're going to like explore the limits of consciousness over time, in that, especially as we have like brain computer interfaces, like, you know,
Yeah.
we're going to like experience different forms, maybe eventually we'll have like binding across of our consciousness across like a digital interface, and then things will get super weird. But right now I don't really, yeah, I mean, that's the consciousness is that experience of like, the different part of neurons firing, getting bound.
Well, we had Jonathan Schooler on the podcast, and he was basically saying that it's unclear if AI is awake. He used the metaphor of the Russian dolls, where his view is consciousness is sort of this nested thing that keeps going down from like a high level sense of identity all the way down to like what it is to be a kidney or what it is to be an individual cell. And so you could have a digital experience that reports being conscious, but then there's nothing inside. So if you were to one day upload yourself, it might self-report that it was conscious, but then actually be dead. We just never know.
Yeah, I don't think we know the physics of consciousness and like what your conscious experience actually is represented in like, that there's like neurons are being bound together and firing together, and that's creating an experience, or at least correlated with an experience that you're having. But we don't really know why, as far as I know. And so, like you said, it could be the case that you like replicate a human brain and all the neurons on like a digital substrate, and like you said, it reports it's conscious, but there's nothing behind it or no conscious experience that it's actually having.
Justin, maybe one last question. Actually, I want to ask you. You read quite a lot. What books would you recommend? Like, what are your top? Maybe you do have a top 3 that you've loved and have been life changing to you that you would recommend to people.
Yeah, I like the book Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, which I think is like a great metaphor for anybody's own life. I'm sure you've heard of it. I like this book called Shogun by James Clavell, which is this kind of adventure story of this British sailor who's marooned in Japan in 1600. Yeah. And I also like this book called Influence, which is kind of like a textbook almost, but it's like a psychology book by this Stanford psychologist, I think Robert Cialdini. And it's a great book on like kind of the things that make people like create influence or persuade people. I guess bonus one, I like this book, The Untethered Soul. I don't know if you've read it, by Michael Singer.
Cool. Thank you, Justin. This was great. Really, really good to catch up with you and learn a bunch of things that I didn't know about you, and kind of understand what makes you tick better. I'll wrap this up.
Thanks for your wisdom, the depth, the experience, and the humility. Appreciate you.
To all of our listeners, thank you for joining in, and subscribe, give us some love, and tell us what we can do better.
Smash that like button.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Justin, and we'll be back with another fun episode next week. All right. Bye.